Okay, hi and welcome. Hi to everyone who's going to watch this back. Hope everybody is good and has had a little bit of practice with their tarot cards over the last few days. And apologies for shifting the time. I didn't forget my husband's birthday. It didn't occur to me when I was booking in on Mondays that this would be an issue. And it's going to be the same next Monday, actually, because I have a funeral to go to, which is far, far, far away. So we'll probably skip to next Tuesday next week as well, if that's okay with everybody, but hopefully that might work out all right. So we left off the other day, I think we were at the Chariot. Did we cover the Chariot or were we about to cover that? Do you remember, Becky?
Yeah, no, we did cover the Chariot. That was the last one I made notes on.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to say about the major arcana before we start looking through them, obviously I'm giving you a kind of overview of all the cards individually, but I think what's quite a fun thing to do is for you to also, as you meet each card, as you look at it within these sessions, is to really think about what the cards are talking to you about things from your own life. I think it's such a powerful way to start to make those connections. So for example, with the Chariot, the question you would ask yourself is, what have I overcome? Like now, in the past, what do you hope to overcome? You know, because sometimes the cards can act as an ambition, perhaps more than a reality. And maybe another card, so like the Empress, you would be asking yourself, what have I created? What have I birthed? What have I nurtured? All those kind of questions. And then allowing yourself, and again, it's something to journal on, allowing yourself to, I guess, dignify your own experience and really slot it into the reality of what these cards mean to you. And I think sometimes we're trained by culture that we must reference other people, you know, like at school, you're constantly having to reference the experts. So you're writing an essay or something and you have to use quotes and reference people and name people. But I think the way I teach tarot, and this goes across the board in life, is that your perspectives of what's going on for you are really, really valid. And that's something that I feel like we all need to reclaim. And so the tarot, working with them in this way, allows us to do that, start to reclaim our experience and recognize the wisdom and the benefit of it, not over and above anybody else's, but alongside it. So it's quite interesting, particularly with these big major themes that we find within the major arcana. So what I wanted to do is before I start reeling through what the cards mean, is to do a little exercise together. So Becky, you can do this, you can be my guinea pig. And then anybody who's doing this after, please do let us know what you got. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to work with both. So have your minor arcana as well as your major arcana, but don't mix them. So I think last session we all pulled a major arcana each to sort of see where we were at, and mine was uncanny, and I think everybody else could relate to what their card was saying. So just as a little fun experiment, is we're going to pull another major arcana card today, and within that we're also going to pull a minor arcana. So the major arcana is the big story, it's what's going on. The minor arcana is some other reflection about what we need to know. And so I can't really second guess whether it's going to be an instruction or guidance or reassurance, and because there's such a wide variety of cards there. But it'd just be interesting to see how they sit. So I'll do this too. So one thing I haven't touched on yet, but that I will just in general, if anybody has any concerns, is that when you're reading tarot, I just choose to believe that I'm protected by divine sources, that nothing lower or evil or nasty can intrude. And that's always kept me quite safe. I've been quite clear about that with my own understanding. And I think sometimes if you just have that in your own understanding, it's enough. But if anybody was concerned, then what I would say to protect yourself when working with spiritual energy is you might want to take a moment to connect to the cards, to take some deep breaths, to imagine maybe a white light that is protecting you. You can also vocalize it like in your mind or out loud. I ask for protection from my guides gods, angels, and just kind of put that out there as protection. Another nice thing to do is to just ground yourself. So feet on the floor, feeling that connection to earth, because tarot can make you feel quite floaty afterwards, and the energy can be quite heightening is what I would say, as well as the next day can find yourself quite tired and emotional. So it's quite good to put these little things in place, even if it's just sort of as an afterthought or a subconscious thought that I am safe, I'm protected, I ask for protection, I have the white light around me. And at the end, maybe at the end of the session as well, really take a moment just to bring yourself back to the room, take a nice deep breath, feet on the floor. It can be very, very simple. You know, if you want to go sage yourself or smudge yourself or hold a crystal, you're absolutely welcome to. I mean, I'm quite lax with what I do. I'm like on, off, because I do it all the time. But for other people, I also recognize that the ritual is really beautiful and a nice thing to undertake. So whatever feels good. Okay, so with that in mind and calling in our protection, we're going to choose a major card each. Look at that.
You said
Same
that one.
Same one. Doesn't surprise me. One little bit, right? And then
the minor.
So this is the thing. And this is why it's interesting to do actual live little bits of readings while we're doing this training rather than theoretical stuff, because you will see stalker cards, they come up time. And, you know, if there's something that's really relevant or really going on for you at any given moment, it will just keep coming up.
Last year, I was stalked by the swords cards constantly swords cards. This year,
difficult year then.
Yeah, it was not a good last year. And this year it seems to be so far cups and wands. So I've just got my dog out.
That's a fun energy.
Yeah, definitely better than swords.
Yes,
although I'm probably for one now.
The swords will get you places, but just not necessarily in the way that you want to get there. And they're very interruptive, and they really make you go deep and deal with.
I mean, it reflected the circumstances, so they were all accurate. But yeah, I'm happy to see less of them. We'll put it like that.
Yeah. Oh, I like mine. So I'll show you mine first. So,
okay.
You know, you saw me shuffling. It was a completely beautiful coincidence that I got the Empress again. Doesn't surprise me. And then alongside that, I got the Two of Cups. So I'm going to read that as the Empress is my main archetype that I'm sat with, I'm working with at the minute, which I guess, you know, I've created decks of cards called Cosmic Mother, and I've done a lot of work around having children and stuff like that. But over the past year, my work has not been focused around family in the same way. So it's interesting. This is calling me back in. And at the same time, we have the Two of Cups, which feels like the support network, which is actually, the card is me with my dog's head on, wearing my grandmother's jacket, and that's the funeral I'm going to on Monday, is my grandma's funeral. So that's kind of beautiful. And this is actually Nikki, the artist for the cards. So she's there in all her bling, and that's her dog's head. So I feel like, me and Nikki are very close. So, it helps that I have images of people I know in the cards. So it could be a literal interpretation that me and Nikki are kind of, she's there supporting, and also in the background we have this project going on, the Rebel Heart Tarot. But I also would say that aside, it's probably me and my husband too, because the Two of Cups is like a close connection, and he is there supporting me, and you know, we're kind of on this path together, which involves, I think, more presence within family and parenthood. So that is how I would read those two, and they're quite pleasant. I rather like that. So Betsy, what did you get?
I got Strength as the major, and no, I got the Hanged Man last time. And then same as you, Two of Cups.
Oh, you got Two of Cups too. And how would you, just looking at them loosely, like, what do you think the story is there? What's going on?
I guess kind of similar. So my nan is currently very, very poorly, end of life care.
Right.
The last week we've been told it'll be any day now, it'll be any day now. So I'm wondering, it's my mum's mum. As of 3, we're quite close.
Right.
So my mum is, bless her, is doing really well, but she's having to be strong for other people. So I think it's me taking on strength for her,
Yes.
because if she needs someone, she hasn't. So that's that. And I guess maybe that's what the Two of Cups is as well. It's that connection between me and my mum,
Yeah.
of being there for her and sort of being that support network for her to kind of get through that. So yeah, that would make a lot of sense if I put the two together like that, I think.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. And I'm sorry to hear about your nan. Having just gone through that myself, I have full love for that for you. But yeah, I mean, that's a really beautiful interpretation as well, and quite clear. And I think mine feel really clear and apparent for my situation. And yours, I think, feel really clear and apparent. And I think sometimes you can get really stuck into like convoluted, long readings, like 20 cards, and you kind of lose the meaning sometimes. And actually, if you're just reflecting on where you're at, all you need is like 1 or 2 cards. And I like this way of like just purposefully using one major card as like the big picture, and the minor card as and what else is going on that's important to this. So it's just an interesting way to experiment and practice with them. So I guess homework wise, I would recommend that you and the other women, when they watch this, that you actively keep your minor and major separate for next till whenever we meet again, and just purposefully pull 1 major and 1 minor every day and see how they fit with your current circumstances, and just allow the minor to be the grit that informs this bigger picture. It's quite a fun thing to do.
Yeah, particularly because there's so many of the minor that they're the ones that I think I get hung up on. I don't know what they all mean. A lot of the majors, because they're quite strong single themes, you kind of they feel a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, it's the minor, like I said, the nitty gritty, but they're the ones that I get hung up on, thinking I don't understand them as well.
Yeah, I get hung up on them too sometimes, to be fair. And sometimes one, you'll be doing a reading and one will just appear and you're like, oh, I just don't quite know how this fits. So, you sit with it and you allow the story to unfold. But yeah, the minor can be quite clear, but sometimes they can be a little bit beyond us sometimes. Excuse me, my cat just came through the cat flap and he doesn't like that. Right then, so let's carry on our little journey through the cards. So the next card is actually strength. So when I designed, let me have a look, the strength card for Rebel Heart, well, me and Nikki, that's actually my mum. That's my old cat who died the year before now. Seems like last year, but anyway. We have a wheelbarrow with a heart in it, that's all kind of sewn up. It's in nice circumstances. So this person with a wounded heart is in this garden of her life. That's not terrible circumstances, but she's handling things. She's dealing with big things. That might be something that you're really feeling at the minute. You're kind of carting your heart around in a wheelbarrow so that you can function for other people. We also included this tiny little cardinal, which has a couple of meanings. Firstly, it's my mum's from Kentucky in America, and the kind of the bird of Kentucky is the cardinal. But also when I looked into that a little bit more, I discovered that the cardinal is actually a very spiritual bird that brings spiritual messages. So when we are plowing into our strength, when we're being forced into this strong position, I think the cardinal comes as a reminder that we may be sometimes feeling very much alone on the human end of things, particularly when someone who you might normally rely on to be there for you, you're having to be there for them. But this is like, how can you find strength and solace with that spiritual perspective? So the strength is a multifaceted card. And again, like I said earlier, think about how strength has shown up for you in your life. How have you had to be strong? So not just in this is Louis, he's in the cards. Not just in this circumstances, but any circumstance really. And the more you think about those circumstances and how you embodied that strength and how you supported it will be quite helpful.
It's funny because when the looking at the 6 cards, finding the 6 that we kind of felt drawn to, and the 6 that were less appealing. I actually did it with 3 decks because I wanted to see if it was just about the artwork, was there different cards that appealed, and strength was one of the only. Strength and the moon came out in all 3 decks that were ones that I was drawn to. So in all 3 that I used, and they're all very different. So I've got your deck, ones that I love the deck, I just can't gel with, the Wild Unknown, and then the Light Seers, which is the one that I use the most often.
It's very popular, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's because it's easy to interpret, and it's quite a light deck, so I like it. But yeah, all 3 of them.
That might be really, I think the thing is with taking those 6 cards and the 6 that you don't like, that's going to change. So you do that in 3 months, you might actually find yourself choosing quite different cards. So the fact that you had the moon and strength come out in all 3 decks is suggesting you're feeling very drawn to having to be strong, but also the moon in terms of it's a kind of weird, can feel like a dark night of the soul, but also the spiritual seeking and the deep divine feminine that kind of comes with that card. It's interesting. That's perhaps where you're really at. So for anybody else watching back as well, just really think about what those cards were and how they reflected. And sorry about this cat, but I have to be nice.
Right. Mine will appear. My dog's playing with toys at the moment. Well, he's currently sat next to me, but you'll hear squeaking at some point because he'll get a squeaky toy.
This one, he's being nice to me because he wants me to feed him, and he's quite a huge cat, and he's beautiful. He's vicious too. So if if he starts getting a bit too friendly, or if he nips me, I'm gonna have to go feed him because he will take my arm.
I'm used to that.
A nice little friendly bite first. But then if I don't feed him quick enough, it'll be like literally.
Yeah, mine's a ginger cat somewhere, and it must be a joint thing.
Yeah, he's Siberian, part Siberian red, which is one of the biggest wild domestic cats. So I've had to have antibiotics twice from his bite. Anyway, we still love him. So the next card along is the Hermit. So let me find that one.
Yep.
It's a card that we might all be feeling a little bit kind of, I've managed to not pull it out. So if everyone can locate their hermits from whichever deck you're using, the general meaning is that kind of hibernation. I have a little tiny image of it there, what the rebel heart looks like. That's my dad on this card. And he's quite the hermit, actually, to be fair. He kind of keeps himself to himself. He can be really outgoing when he wants to, but it's like he has to switch a button in his head. But yeah, the hermit is all about that going inwards to find whatever wisdom it is you need at that present time. And it can feel quite lonely, but at the same time, that loneliness allows for some really incredible self-introspection. So things to think about would be, when have you ever felt lonely? What have you done about that? How have you made the most of your alone time? How have some of the lonelier times in your life perhaps led you to new understandings and shifts, maybe creativity? I'm thinking back to, times when I've been more lonely, and it's actually fueled a lot of my creativity. So I guess that kind of being alone allows us to find ways to entertain ourselves and express ourselves in lots and lots of different ways. So yeah, everyone have a little think about how the hermit has shown up for you. So the inner work, studying, retreat, solitude, and the affirmation that I wrote for this card is, I am here to experience myself. And that includes that kind of alone time, intensive. It's not like a few hours where you're kicking your heels and don't know what to do. It's probably often something that goes on for months and causes sort of inner shifts and change. So, and the next card is the Wheel of Fortune, which has been coming up on a loop. If you follow me on Instagram, this is going to be our card for tomorrow on Instagram. I pulled it and recorded it today. If you're in my Cosmic Sisterhood, that was also the card for the week this week. I think it's like everybody's finally realized we're in a new year, and people are like I feel like 2023 hit kind of odd, and sorry, I'm now doing a reading for the card, not talking about the card anyway, but I feel like we're all feeling sort of Wheel of Fortune vibes, you know, like 2023 is here. We're finally getting into the mix of life a little bit more, and it probably feels slightly chaotic and beyond our control. And that's the thing about the Wheel of Fortune. You'll see lots of different readers with different opinions on this card or saying different things. So some people will be like, oh, the Wheel of Fortune, that means good luck and power. And other people will be like, oh, the Wheel of Fortune, that's chaos and crazy. I think it's both. It's anything that could possibly happen. But the one thing that I think is true, remains true about it, is that it takes us towards our fortune. That doesn't mean like a bucket of money at the end of a rainbow, but it does mean our destiny is being created within that mix. And I do, you know, we can dodge destiny and we can avoid it as much as we like, but there is something about stepping out of the way to let that Wheel of Fortune spin and see where it carries us. So have a think about the times in your life that have been chaotic.
That was one of the ones that I came up in the 6 I wasn't drawn to.
Right.
I wonder if it's the chaos.
Yeah, well,
kind
it's kind of, it's the surrender, isn't it? Like the words here, fate, divine order, change, inevitable surrender. So it's like a lack of control. The only control we have is giving up control.
Yeah.
It can be really challenging.
That would make sense.
Yeah. Then we have justice, which I've always found quite a difficult card. And I'm a Libran, so I'm very into my balance and you know, kind of getting those scales balanced. But beyond that, I do sometimes struggle with this card. It feels like there's just such a big theme there. I think sometimes with these archetypal cards, there is such a big theme there that it can almost elude us, you know? So I guess justice is the laws around us, karmic justice, natural justice. I tend to see it more as natural justice and natural law, but you know, it could come up in a reading if somebody was involved in legal matters. But I feel like the justice that will be served is always the natural justice in the long term anyway. And it all sort of depends on truth and honesty and getting the order right, and creating a just existence for ourselves based upon our needs as well, if we're looking at it on a very personal level. Just having a look what I wrote here. Justice is not about punishment. See, that's the other thing. I think some people, you know, we see justice, police, courts, jail. I don't think that's always the case, but there is that karmic idea of what goes around comes around, and karma being something that is constantly pushing us back into balance, but can feel like punishment if we've come really far away from our balance. So yeah, big themes to again think about when you have ever felt that justice has been done by you, or the opposite, whenever you have felt life has been unjust, because the card could still come up in relation to that with some other interesting cards around it. So then we have, sorry, I'm whizzing through these now because I'm trying to get all the major arcana done in this session. We have the Hanged Man. So that's my friend Louisa, who is the creator of Barefoot Festival, if anybody knows of that festival that happens in Leicestershire. It's not happening this year, but most years for quite a while that's been going on. So the Hanged Man is based, this particular image is based upon my Cosmic Mother cards image, which was a woman in the woods with her knickers showing and her skirt sort of hanging down. But just trying to find the joy within that moment of pause. Like, yes, we're stilted and we're stagnant and we're stalled, but that's because life, the universe, whatever, is trying to drill us into that be here now kind of vibe. So I'm sure we can all relate. I'm sure the Hanged Man is not too hard for most of us to be able to kind of sit with and identify as something that we have been with at some period. And perhaps next time we're at a stagnant, difficult place, is thinking about what is being stuck in my circumstances allowing me to experience. I think it's a good way to flip it on its head a little bit. So the next card we have is the Death card, which, now have I told you, did I tell you the story about the Queen? I don't think I have told. There's only one time this card has ever come out for me as an actual death, and that was on the day the Queen died. And it didn't come out just for, I was working with Nikki creating the cards, or we weren't, they were already created, but Nikki pulled a card that morning, I pulled a card, and our literary agent also pulled a card that morning, and we all got the death card.
Wow.
Completely oblivious to the fact the Queen was going to die. So we were like, oh, well, we think this is about this, or this is about that. And then within a few hours, obviously, there was the announcement.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, how uncanny. So, you know, death can represent death, and it was a big universal death that affected a lot of people and that, you know, affected the world really. But I think, you know, I've been reading 30 years, and that's the only real experience I've had firsthand of death reflecting death. And I've had other cards, you know, I've had people die and the card hasn't actually come up. Maybe other cards that have indicated it. So I think people are a bit frightened of death, like they think they're going to get it and that's it, their head's on the chopping block. But it's more, to me, it's more about rebirth, what comes next, and all the different deaths that we can undergo in just one day. There's plenty.
Yeah, so one of the decks I've used, they've got death/rebirth as the name. So it's slightly different meaning, which is nice.
Yeah, I think it's important to focus on that. And it's like the affirmation in here is, I welcome the life that comes after death. So, but at the same time, it is important, I guess, to also note that death is a difficult card to sit with. There's grief within it, there's loss, and that needs to be honored too, and not just kind of like, hey, let's move on to the next path or the next adventure. Actually, sometimes we just need to be in that grieving space for a little bit of time. So the next one is Temperance, which speaks a little bit to that, actually, the idea of pausing and being with what you're with. Temperance is very much, it's a funny, profound kind of theme. It's not it's not something that we as modern people hear that word really ever. But it is about that patience. And again, the trusting in the stillness, that things will happen, you know, in your benefit, even without you really doing anything. So again, it's that surrendering of control. There's a big theme in the tarot for me about surrendering control and trusting other things to go on. That doesn't mean we should just lay down and let our lives happen completely all the time. We still have to put the work in and do the things, but there are periods where it's better that we just stop and we wait and we pause and regroup. And it's interesting that card comes after death, because I guess that is a really, you know, you don't just have a death, an ending, and suddenly be reborn like the next day. You need to do a little bit of this stewing and pausing and thinking and trusting that something is unfolding. So that's Temperance. I surrender to divine timing is my affirmation for that one. Hello again, Louis. So then we have the Devil, which is, as I say frequently when talking about this card, it's not some external baddie sat at the end of your bed who shows up in the middle of the night with horns. This is the internal demons that we all have that can really limit us and bound us to ourselves. So it's when our mental health is poor, when we are in some kind of addiction, whether that's to a situation, a substance, you know. But I think more and above, it's just the low mood, the depression, the kind of worries, anxiety, and it can come and go. So it doesn't, you know, you can get the devil and it can be like a flash in the pan, you know, you're due on your period and the world's a horrible place and then it goes. Or it can be like a long-term ongoing thing. It's anything in between. That's the thing with most of the cards, they like span this huge kind of array of different experiences we can have. But if it comes up, you know, this came up for a client for me today, and it was really just about overthinking and allowing those more negative thoughts that she'd already worked through in her life, they were just resurfacing again. And you can be in a really healthy, good place as well and still have this. It's it's an archetype, it's innate, it's within us. So when it does come up, not to beat ourselves up too much about it, but to recognize that this will return again and again, no matter how improved we think ourselves to be. So
I always interpret it as a bit of a temptation as well. Can that be?
Temptation, yeah, definitely. It's where we're willing to kind of give parts of ourselves away to get that quick fix, that quick high, that dopamine, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, temptation is definitely a part of that, which is more likely to occur when we're feeling weaker.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. So this is where we get all the jolly cards, because the next one is the Tower. I've got a weird thing about the Tower, though. I've decided I really like it. I don't know. It's just, I feel like maybe it's this card that we designed just made me feel differently about it. But I feel like it's a bit like the Death card. Things need to give way. Stuff out. Stuff needs to crumble sometimes. And if it doesn't crumble, it just, what happens? It stagnates, it becomes boring, it gets old. So for me, the Tower is like this cosmic resorting of our priorities, our lives, the material stuff even around us, the way we see things, relationships that fall away because they've become toxic. So whilst it's really difficult and it feels like destruction and forced change, there is some beauty, I think, in that when that change has happened, you've got space that you didn't have before. And we can try and hang on as well, try and stop the Tower crumbling. But again, it's these things happening often to us, which is not what we like. As humans, we like to be in control. But again, sometimes the control is taken away for reasons that we don't fully understand at the time, but that hopefully will make sense. So, then we get the nice, so after those couple of not so much fun cards, we then get our lovely celestial cards. So we have the Star. So this is actually me, like my outline. It's a photograph from in my, like I was about 22. I don't know where it is now. I think it's in the attic, but it's a lovely modeling type shot that I had. And Nikki took it out and put stars in my body. And this is a star that still is on my back fence that my husband made like 20 years ago in his job. And here we have this water, this crystal clear water in a dirty bucket. And I think even just the water in the bucket sort of says it all, really, with the Star. It's about taking the dirt, the kind of hardships of life, and transmuting them, alchemizing them into something better, something clearer. There's the alchemy of, dirt to gold, that kind of thing. So how in our lives have we taken difficult, challenging circumstances and become better because of them? And how vulnerable that makes us feel when we're in the process of that. Because I think often the Star is pictured naked in a lot of decks, and that is that vulnerability, that being kind of exposed. Your truth is exposed, but the truth is where the power lays, I guess. I mean, I'm so naked that you can see the stars, but but yeah. So it's a good time, when thinking about this card, think about times where you have felt vulnerable or where you have had to change something that feels like quite a difficult, dark thing, and kind of make it your superpower in some respects. So it's lovely. Then we have the Moon, which you said was one of your cards you liked.
I'm a Pisces, so that would be why. Yeah,
that would work. So bit about, this is Nikki, the artist, this is her dog, and this is the Moon, all of our Moon. So the Moon, I mean, I used to just, when I was younger, just call this the card of weirdness, but I think I understand that weirdness a little bit better now. It's the weirdness that we are forced to meet with if we want to get to know ourselves better on a more like transcendental kind of level. It's the self-explanation. exploration. It's wilderness, the inner wilderness of our wildness that has been tamed for so long. And it's the unknown. I think it's also a bit of a spiritual path. And that feeling of, I guess, that when you go out in the moonlight and everything looks different, when you're in this energy, everything looks different. You know, everything, like for you with your nan, everything that you've known your whole life is shifting, and it can feel really liminal and odd, like a really odd transition. So I think the moon is a gorgeous card, but it has got that edgy kind of vibration to it. And that's, again, just giving yourself over to that, surrendering to it and thinking, well, this is where we are. As it says here, the moon pulls the waves into its orbit, just as it's starting to pull the divine and the sacred into your consciousness. Surrender to this happening and give yourself up to the thrust of something greater than you. So I think if you didn't have any kind of spiritual belief or faith, then that's a really hard card to sit with. That's when you start having dark nights of the soul and kind of existential crisis, which you can have anyway, even with a spiritual path. But the moon without any kind of faith is even more difficult. So the affirmation here is, I give myself up to the tides of life that pull me. So
I like that.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have the sun. Yes, it was like the last card we got done. This is Nikki, the artist again. Well, her clothes, really, you can't see her at all. And she is just beaming light out from everywhere. So the sun feels like reward, it feels like happiness, light. It can also, for me, be illumination. So it's illuminating things that we have. So maybe if we've been sat in this sort of weird dark moment for a while, and then the light comes and you see things differently, you understand things differently, you've done that deep inner work of the moon, and then you find yourself looking at life and going, that's why this, and that's why they did, and that's why I feel, so it can be quite, rigorous in terms of self-awareness as well. But there's also a lot of positivity and kind of powerful affirmation of who you are and who you are becoming within the sun. So again, just think about when you have felt like in that kind of strong, illuminated, glowing moment, and they tend to be moments. I don't think we sit in many of these energies for too long, but it's nice to kind of explore how we might have already experienced them. So there's 2 cards left. So we have Judgment. That's a biggie. There's a big biggie. That's my husband. And these wings are the yarn. We do a yarn bomb in my village. And it's very impressive. It just got on Grayson Perry's art show recently, because it's just like this massive art installation, like a bunch of women, like sort of middle-aged to elderly women put up in the village, but it is incredible.
WI or something.
No, it's because 2 younger women run it. They just have mobilized into, like, the stuff they create is incredible. And you can't, nobody believes me until I take them. And just, like, my brother was like, oh, I live in London, so I'll go and have a look at these pom-poms. But when he said, just like they make people yarn, they make like stories. They do different themes each year. Anyway, I'll go on about the yarn bomb, but it's incredibly impressive. Anyway, those are some yarn bombs. But the judgment card for me is really about accountability, alignment, and truth, like pure and simple. And I had to sit with this card for a good year or so, and it is killer, because it's any kind of ways that you try and sway from your own truth, where you don't even realize you're doing it, you just get pulled right back in, and it's painful. It's really painful. It's like you're unmasking over and over and over until you get into that space of truth. So my affirmation is, I welcome my most vulnerable and magical truths, I guess, rather than trying to run away from them, or try to cover them or try to mask them. So yeah, I mean, I think with judgment, anything that is toxic, anything that is stressful is being pulled away. But some of these things are like our crutches, So it's a big painful but powerful card, because it's really just trying to get you to be you.
Mhm.
That's the simplicity of it. You know, if you were to say, oh, all you need to do to dodge this card is be yourself, like, yeah, no problem. But actually the reality of that is
Easier said than done.
yeah, because you've got so many layers of crap that you don't even know are there. It's probably a lifetime's work, but yeah, it comes in fits and spurts, I imagine.
Mhm.
But then we have the lovely world card. This is a lady called Kerry Wilde, who's like a fashion guru stylist, soul stylist, spiritual kind of stylist, who's got quite an ethical and moral approach. But this is completion, reward, success, the ending and the beginning, manifested dreams. You know, if we think about from the Fool through all these different cards and all these different ways that the cards are trying to shift us and make us become something else, and then we end up here for a little bit of time, which is on the podium and in control and feeling, you know, because we do get to be in control some of the time. The cards aren't always trying to wrestle it away from us. And this is one of those moments where we have sovereignty and we get to choose and we get to be in our own power. Can be intimidating, can be overwhelming for some people, you know, it can be blinding, but at the same time, we're probably here because we're ready for it. And so it's really about accepting that, honoring it, and finding a powerful path forward with it. And using this moment of success to plot and plan the next journey, because we won't be on that. You can't survive and live just on this pedestal. You've got to climb down and go and feed yourself and get the shopping and, you know, choose the next job or the next thing that you need to do. So it's kind of like a big high five from the universe. You're doing well, you're accomplished, you get to wear the crown, but you can't wear it all day because it gets a bit heavy. You know, it's on to the next adventure. Which then I guess we go back around to the Fool.
Yeah.
So the Fool in this deck is stepping off of that into the cosmos. So that, in a nutshell, is our major arcana. And hopefully it's given yourself and the others a little bit of food for thought. So I would definitely recommend keep playing with one major card a day, one card a day, and we'll be starting with the minors on Friday, which is not too far off now. But it's a good way to bring a bit of the minor energy in. And you can continue doing that for as long as it serves you, or any time, in, of course, in the future. If you want like a quick reflection on where you are at, I think a major and a minor is a really powerful way to explore that.
Yeah, it was good. I like doing that.
Oh, all right then, Becky. Well, thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have a few more.
Is it going to be 5 or 6 on Friday? Not that I think either of them matter to me, but
I'm probably going to do 5 if that's okay with most people. Yeah, just because the kids, it seems to be a good period of time where, because my kids are home and my husband's been working funny hours. So they just seem to, it's the nice time where they're nice and tired. So they have a little chill and I don't feel guilty about it. So
yeah, no, I think Friday's fine. I can't remember about next week, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Friday at 5 is fine. If I am late, it'll only be a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and then next week it'll be Tuesday, not Monday. So all right then. Thank you for being here.
No worries. See you next week. Well, see you later.
See you soon. Bye.